Mount Shasta is one of the most beautiful mountains in Northern California, but its beauty is not what makes this place popular. It's the air of uneasiness that surrounds it, like you're always being watched, and the several oddities that occur that make Mount Shasta a terrifying place to be. Never have I seen a place that is a treasure trove for all things strange. It has UFOs, cults, lost cultures, strange beings from other worlds, and so many terrifying missing people reports that you just have to ask, what the heck is going on at Mount Shasta? At 14,179 feet above sea level, Mount Shasta is an amazing stratovolcano. And like other volcanoes of this type, it has a more standard and almost cartoonish cone shape that is made up of 4 separate cones that overlap. This makes it a striking and easy-to-see landmark. As you get closer to Mount Shasta, the first thing you notice is how out of place it looks. Even though it's one of the biggest peaks in North America, it doesn't connect to any other mountains. Located in Northern California, Mount Shasta is so high and steep that it cuts through the clouds and makes its own weather. With its snow-covered faces, it's a great place for skiers, walkers, mountain climbers, and campers. But for a long time, it has also been a popular vacation spot for spiritually minded people who want an unusual vacation. Thousands of people climb the mountain every year in the hopes of connecting with something beyond the earth and rocks. There are even tour guides and places to visit that focus on meditation, vision quests, and other New Age activities that are said to be spiritual sites on the mountain. And you can easily find bookstores that sell spiritual books about healing vibrations, crystals, angels, and other topics. Many of these bookstores say they are connected to the mountain itself. And before you call them crazy, there are actually documented cases that make you see that maybe they do have a point, especially if we start from the very beginning. According to local indigenous tribes, namely the Wintu people, Mount Shasta is home to the spirit chief Skell, who came down from the sky to live on top of the mountain. Skell fought another spirit called Liao, the spirit of the below world, who lived at Mount Mazama. He threw hot rocks and fire at Lao before finally defeating him. Although there are various modern conspiracies associated with Mount Shasta, it has long been a sacred site to various indigenous tribes. Artifacts found in the area suggest that humans had been living there for at least 9,000 years, which, by the way, makes it one of the longest occupied areas in the country. Some of the tribes that still live near the mountain are the Wintu, the Modoc, the Akumawi, the Atsugewi, and the Shasta. The traditional stories say that the mountain is home to many spirits and gods, and most of the tribes tell the same story of the fight between Skell and Lao, despite their little differences here and there. Native American legends all have one thing in common. You should never go above the tree line, which they all believe is where the sky people live. These are beings that are said to be more powerful than we humans, and even some historical records found kind of tally with the legends of the tribes. Not far from Mount Shasta is Petroglyph Point, which has some of the oldest stone writings ever found in North America. The glyphs show animals, rivers, the sun, and stars, but there are also carvings of what some people think could be these sky people. Native American tribes thought that the sky people were spiritual beings who lived in a different world, a plane of existence where the souls and spirits of the dead lived, and they could come into our world. Now, this is not entirely a cause for concern. Everywhere on Earth has some mythical attachment to it, whether it is true or not. But what makes Mount Shasta different is the mysterious things that follow, that make us question if it is all true, especially when it comes to how easily people disappear on Mount Shasta without ever being found. A terrifying case that comes to mind is the Yuba County Five. Gary Mathias, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, and Ted Wire all died mysteriously on a cold February night in 1978. The men got into Jack's car and were going straight home to Yuba City in Marysville, which was about 78 kilometers away. They stopped at a supermarket to buy some snacks, after which they drove off, heading home. Unfortunately, they never got home. Police investigation later revealed that instead of going home, they got off the highway and went up a mountain road, where they just disappeared. No one knows why they did this, and it was very strange. Jack's car was later found in the Plumas National Forest, caught in a snowdrift just off the side of the road. The keys were missing, but there was still fuel in the car, and there were a number of folded maps inside the glove compartment. Sadly, it wasn't until the snow began to melt in June of the next year that police and searchers were able to get answers. Someone on a motorcycle, who was riding through a mountainside, found Ted Wire's body inside a Forest Service trailer. And here's the weird thing. Ted wasn't wearing any shoes, and he was wrapped up in several blankets. Plus, the trailer had everything it needed for food and warmth, but nothing was used. The next day, June 6th, they found Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga about 18 kilometers northeast of where the car had been left. Outside, family members helped with the search, and on June 7th, Jack Hewitt's body was found by his own father. Gary Mathias is the only one in the group who was never found. The news shocked the little town, and even now no one can make sense of what exactly happened. Another mysterious disappearance is that of 69-year-old Carl Landers, who was an experienced climber who just suddenly vanished on the mountain in May of 1999. Sounds normal until you hear that he disappeared when he was in the company of two friends. It was like one moment he was there, and the next he wasn't. He vanished without a trace, even though a thorough search that involved helicopters, searches on the ground, and thermal imaging was carried out. Carl has never been found. Not even his clothing or the equipment he was using was ever found. Prior to his disappearance, Carl had climbed almost all the mountains in California. That was his goal, and Mount Shasta was going to be the last one. But that never happened. These are just some of the cases we know about. There are hundreds of missing people cases that can't be explained. Neither have they been found. But in 2011, we got a glimpse of what could be causing this mysterious disappearance. We finally had a testimony from a survivor of a mysterious abduction, and it all came from a child. And what he revealed, well, what he revealed was straight out of a horror movie. There was a very strange case where a 3-year-old little boy named Samuel was camping with his family near Mount Shasta in 2011. The family was out hiking with Samuel behind them, only for the parents to turn around, unable to see or find him. He had disappeared with no trace at all. He was there one moment and gone the next. Just like with Carl Landers, they didn't even have a shoe print to track the boy. They started searching for Samuel, also involving the relevant authorities. But with each hour passing, it was looking bleak. Fortunately, after 5 hours, Samuel was found. But where he was found raised more questions than answers. He was found miles away from where he had initially gone missing, which didn't make sense, because there is no way a young boy like that could travel that far in the space of 30 minutes max. When questioned about how he walked that far, he said he didn't know. He couldn't explain how he had gone so far away from his family. Now, this is where things got strange. On being found, Samuel made a very strange claim. He said a woman who looked just like his grandmother took him into a cave. Only it wasn't his grandmother. Not only that, he said there were people in the cave, and they all had eerie, glowing eyes, while some of them were just frozen. This new grandmother seemed nice at first, but she was checking him, like she was noting the differences here and there. Then she asked the little boy to poop on a piece of stick, which the boy refused. And then, after she was done, the next thing the boy saw was that he was back in the woods. In such all this time, the boy actually thought he was with his grandma. It was only when he told his story to his grandma weeks later over a phone call that the family became worried. At first, they thought he had a very rich and active imagination, but even the grandmother had to admit that it was weird for kids to imagine pooping on a piece of stick. Kids don't really imagine that. At worst, they just do it. No imagination needed. And even if we agree to disagree that it was the kid's imagination, that doesn't still answer how the kid was found miles away from his family. And this is just one of several reports of people's weird experiences on Mount Shasta. There have been reports of strange lights in the sky that move around randomly, change colors, and don't act like any known aircraft. Some visitors to Mount Shasta have even said that they had spiritual encounters with beings they call extraterrestrial or interdimensional, in which they had visions and telepathic communication. There are also numerous Reddit posts where people share their encounters. Now, I can't verify their claims, but one thing that caught my attention with these reports is the Me Too movement that followed. It turns out that multiple people have witnessed these strange events, and some can even tell you exactly where all these happened. But the more I research about this mountain to find out more about it, the more I begin to see this has been a common occurrence to everyone living nearby, even as far back as pre-flood civilizations. Mount Shasta has also been a focus for non-Native American legends for a long time. One such legend is that it is the location or entrance to the hidden city of Telos. Telos is a city that is said to exist inside Mount Shasta, inhabited by superior and advanced beings from the lost kingdom of Lemuria. Yeah, that Lemuria that existed during the times of Atlantis. Frederick Spencer Oliver wrote a book called Dweller on Two Planets in 1899. He told a story based on what was found written on ancient Hindu tablets. The story says that over 1 million years ago, the Earth was ruled by two very advanced civilizations, the Atlanteans and the Larians. Both had technology that was much more advanced than any race or civilization at that time. But Atlantis was the most powerful. It was good and peaceful for a long time, and everyone respected each other. But around 250,000 years ago, Atlantis became corrupted and wanted to rule everyone on Earth. The Larians found out about this. They didn't want to be ruled by Atlantis and wanted to be left alone. This refusal began the Atlantean-Larian War. For years, the two nations used destructive nuclear weapons against each other. The resulting explosions were so powerful and violent that they shifted the Earth's magnetic poles and made the tectonic plates move. This resulted in a huge flood that hit the world and wiped out not just both civilizations fighting, but every other civilization that existed. By now you are thinking, young Drass. The few Atlanteans who survived fled to Arthur, an underground city that I'll be talking about on this channel, while the remaining Larians fled to Mount Shasta and built the city called Telos. These Larians lived in a complicated network of caves inside the mountain, with walls covered in jewels and floors covered in fur. They were sometimes seen walking on the ground wearing white robes. The Larians were said to be 7 feet tall, thin, beautiful, and have glowing skin. Their long necks were decorated with collars made of gold, jewels, and beads. Larians usually dress in white robes and shoes, but sometimes they're seen in tunics or nothing at all. Not only was their city impressive, but the Larians had powers that could easily control magnetism, electricity, and even the ability to alter space and time. They had airships for transportation, and also an artificial sun right inside the caves that they created with their magical power. Now, I know it all sounds like a good story, but I'm going to stop you there because someone actually found the city. And that person also found the remains of these beings. In 1904, a British prospector named J.C. Brown actually found a lost hidden city under Mount Shasta. Brown was initially hired by the Lord KRE Mining Company of England to look for gold. During his search, he found a cave that sloped downwards for up to 11 miles. He entered into this cave, and inside it, he saw a town buried below it. When Brown reached the end of the tunnel, he saw what looked like the remains of an ancient city. He saw long-abandoned equipment that looked like it had been used in a mining operation, as well as statues, tablets, shields, and weapons all made of gold. And all were written with hieroglyphics. He also found what he called a worship room, with figures that seemed to glow in the dark. The last room in the cave system was a tomb with 27 huge skeletons arranged in a row, with an average height of 7 feet. The tallest ones were over 10 feet tall. Brown was perplexed. He didn't know what to do with what he just saw. The next thing Brown did was close the cave's entrance and not tell anyone about it. What J.C. Brown saw was almost identical to what the Larians are believed to have looked like. After 30 years, Brown told John C. Root his story. I don't know why he had to wait 30 years to say something, but he did. Root then put together an exploration team in Stockton, California. The team had about 80 members filled with researchers, scientists, and explorers. This was big in every way. Lemuria's existence was about to be proven, plus the gold that would be found would make them very rich. Newspapers widely covered the story and the excitement around the adventure. Everyone was eager to discover Lemuria. But on the day the team was set to explore the cave, Brown did not show up. In such, Brown was never seen or heard from again. After Brown disappeared, some people said he was a fraud and that's why he ran away, seeing as he was about to be caught up in his lies. But here's the thing, J.C. Brown never took any money from anyone for the expedition. The only thing he did was just tell his experience, that's all. So how was he a fraud if he never took anybody's money in the first place? This is why the other side of the argument believes he might have been erased by a powerful group. Lastly, there's one more theory left that, at first, sounds super crazy, but on closer inspection could be a plausible reason for Brown's disappearance. Some believe that J.C. Brown didn't need a search party to find Lemuria because he had already been there and been granted access, and was probably beamed up by a mysterious machine that took him to the city of Ts. Now this theory sounds ridiculous at first until the description of the supposed mysterious machine that took J.C. Brown. The machine or vehicle was described as an oval or round shape that could move at ease. And by now you're already thinking of a UFO, and I'm here to tell you that you might be right. There have been reports of UFOs around Mount Shasta for more than 100 years, increasing every year. People have seen chrome objects hanging around dark mountain roads. Others report seeing lights moving in a line and disappearing after circling the peak. A couple said they saw a UFO hovering over the St. Germain Foundation land in 1991. This happened about 45 minutes from Mount Shasta. As late as 2008, there was another report. Heck, in February 2020, something was seen in the sky above the mountain. The pictures went viral, but the UFO turned out to be a curved cloud in the end. Even so, the belief was so strong that it was a UFO that the US Forest Service had to release a report to let everyone know it wasn't an alien. However, what makes Mount Shasta strange is that the UFOs don't just float around the mountain. People have seen them fly into it like there is an entrance somewhere on the mountain, like it's going home after a long journey. Every single witness that has seen a UFO in Mount Shasta always, and I mean always, talks about seeing the ship fly into the side of the mountain, or fly into it from above and just disappear. Mount Shasta is also widely regarded as a paranormal hotspot, where the barriers between worlds are substantially thinner, and as a result, beings from other worlds enter ours. People have seen strange beings in Mount Shasta caves for decades. These beings seem to be able to walk through walls, and then disappear. In such, the famous Count of St. Germain was seen on Mount Shasta. Guy Ballard was hiking on Mount Shasta when he saw a man who presented himself as the Count of St. Germain. The man possessed superior knowledge that convinced Ballard he wasn't just speaking to a mere man. If you know about the Count of St. Germain, you'd know how mysterious and superior his intellect can be. In such, I'm making a video about him which will be uploaded in the next couple of months. Ballard believed he was talking to a superior being. That experience that day helped him form a religion of his own called the I Am activity in the 1930s. And at one time, it had 1 million followers. Not the social media type, but actual people who believed in what he was teaching. This is just one of many experiences from millions of people who have visited Mount Shasta. And everyone has a different experience that makes it hard to pinpoint what Mount Shasta is really about. So, what exactly is going on at Mount Shasta? Is it aliens, gods, ancient beings, or even something we don't know? So, what the heck is it? The answer is no one really knows. For starters, it's hard to figure out ancient native legends because we don't have any proof to support or disprove them. These stories have been passed down for thousands of years, so it's not only possible but also likely that they've changed over time. While Mount Shasta isn't very active right now, it has erupted many times in the past, and people lived nearby during those eruptions. When native tribes said that Mount Shasta was home to a god who threw flaming rocks at his enemies, it could just be they were trying to make sense of what they saw with the volcanoes. I mean, take this story for example, the Amazon's boiling river. For centuries upon centuries, the natives thought it was an act of God. Peruvian-American geoscience scientist Andres Russo first heard of the story from his grandfather, who told him about an Amazon river so boiling hot that it scared the Spaniards during their Incan conquest. So, Russo thought it was just a story, until he found out that his aunt and uncle had been to that same river, which meant it was real. Russo went exploring in 2011, even though his friends told him that a hot river couldn't exist without a nearby volcano, and there was no volcano around. Led by his aunt and a shaman's apprentice, Russo arrived at a tributary 80 feet wide, 4 miles long, and over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, a true unreported boiling river. But here's the thing, despite it being 2011 with all the technology and all that, people still believed this river was spiritual. Local shamans called it Tesca and believed it was created by a giant snake spirit called Yukam Mama. But in reality, Tesca is heated by a geothermal gradient, which Russo described. Think of the boiling river as an earth artery, where you have that hot water running up a fault and heating up what starts off as a small, just ambient temperature cold stream, right in the middle of the jungle. And as it runs over all these big fault zones, it supercharges it to turn it into ultimately almost 4 miles of thermal flow, much of that hot enough to kill you. So this was a perfect example of how easy it was for the locals to make something supernatural to give a rational explanation to something they experienced. Couldn't explain, and we humans do this every time. Our brain, whether you know it or not, always tries to make sense of things we don't understand. That's why those who don't believe in God believe in the universe or karma or the laws of the universe, trying to make sense of it all. Also, during my research, a lot more people visited Mount Shasta than I thought. And it was not for spiritual enlightenment, but to just hike and climb the mountain. Mount Shasta is actually a great mountain to climb or hike. In such, I found a Reddit post where people were asking for tips on the best way to climb the mountain, and users were pouring in, commenting on their positive and enjoyable experiences. And nothing strange happened to them. Sure, some people died while hiking, but there was usually an explanation, like there was a mistake during the climb or hike and their bodies are usually found. Heck, there were comments from people who said they lived near Mount Shasta most of their lives, and they never felt anything strange from the mountain. In such, the Reddit post about the strange occurrences was the first time they heard about ghosts, creatures, and UFOs. And for the UFO reports, the weather at Mount Shasta is kind of perfect for creating lenticular cloud formations. Lenticular clouds are stationary clouds that form mostly in the troposphere, typically in parallel alignment to the wind direction. These clouds are shaped like huge UFOs, and if you didn't know about them, you would think they were UFOs. Just like the natives of Peru thought the boiling stream was from a giant snake spirit, when in reality, what you call UFOs are actually just clouds. So now that we've debunked some theories, what does that tell us? Nothing. I see Mount Shasta as having two sides of a coin. On one side, nothing crazy or supernatural happens, and a lot of people can testify to it, even people who have lived there for years. On the other side of this coin, strange, unexplainable things happened, like the boy who went missing only to be found miles away in a short period of time. Or like the experienced climber Carl Landers, that not even his shoe was ever found despite going missing in a sort of open space. This is one peculiar story where everyone is right, even the UFO theory. Because as we've seen, even the United States government has publicly admitted to the existence of UFOs. So what's to say one isn't hovering over Mount Shasta? Even the theory of an ancient civilization, as far-fetched as it sounds, could be right. Places like Bimini Road in the Bahamas make us wonder if these civilizations exist. And even till tomorrow, archaeologists are still finding things that people once thought were stories but now are proven true. I mean, how does it sound if I told you that there is an underground area so vast it contains a life-sized terracotta army of Emperor Qin Shi Huang? Or how the Dead Sea Scrolls proved major things recorded in the Bible? You'd probably call me crazy, but all these things happened. And finding these things meant that people who talked about these things were not really crazy. And if those people were right, what's to say all the theories we've said so far about Mount Shasta aren't?